this is a real leopards eating my face moment for her. It's just weird, man. It's weird to see her try to reposition herself like this. I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't understand like how this will be successful for her.
It's the political breakup heard round the world. President Trump severing ties with at least one of his closest allies, declaring, "I am withdrawing my support and endorsement of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene," even calling for primary challenges against his one-time loyalists and attacking her as, quote, wacky, a ranting lunatic, a rhino, and a traitor. This is
the first bisexual president was Lincoln. Yeah. The first biromantic asexual president was Donald Trump. What happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene, man? She got reverse John Fetterman. No, she just, I don't know. She wants to elevate her status, I think. I can't see her being sincere. I'm not the type of person who ever assumes a politician is sincere. And I certainly cannot see someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene ever being sincere. Reporter just asked Trump about Fuentes and he lied about Mamdani, Lemafayou. Do you think if people try pressing Trump on Fuentes stuff and like right-wing infighting, that eventually Donald Trump will try and use me as a foil, as a counter to be like, well, there's this Hasan guy and he said he hates America. He hates America. He's in China right now. Why doesn't he say? Why doesn't he stay in China? Marjorie Taylor Greene sees the writing on the wall and is doing what she can to elevate herself, like you said. Yeah, I think that Marjorie Taylor Greene sat through that hearing from the victims and couldn't ignore it, to be honest. It could be that. It could be that he is... she told Dana Bash to have Fuentes on CNN. He watches Fox, is bound to happen. I used to think Marjorie Taylor Greene is a true believer. Like, even if she's insane, like, even if she's anti-Semitic, insane, believes, like, QAnon conspiracy, stuff like that, I always thought that she was sincere. Do you know what I mean? Like, I thought she was genuine in her madness rather than someone who was like cynically leaning into these kinds of metas. Like it just doesn't, like, I think she's really crazy. You know, I don't think she is faking being that crazy because she like lucked into a vein at the heart of the Republican Party, if that makes sense.
Before the House of Representatives is set to vote on releasing the Epstein files. It's a stunning breach between two MAGA leaders, one of whom is here with me now exclusively for her first interview since the president cut ties. Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, thank you so much for being here. As you just heard, and I know you saw, the president says he's withdrawing support for you. Encouraging primary challengers. You were one of his biggest supporters. What do you think happened here?
Well, Dana, thank you for having me on, and that is true. I stood with President Trump when virtually no one else did. Campaigned all over the country, spent millions of my own dollars helping him get elected, and I think that's incredibly important. And I do support him and his administration, and I support them in delivering the campaign promises we made to the American people. His remarks, of course, have been hurtful. However, I have something in my heart that I think is incredibly important for our country, and that is to end the toxic fighting in politics. And this has been going on for years, and it has divided our country, split up friends and families, neighbors, and it's not solving our problems. The most hurtful thing he said, which is absolutely untrue, is he called me a traitor, and that is so extremely wrong. And those are the types of words used that can radicalize people against me and put my life in danger.
What do you think happened? What do you think is the reason for this?
I heard from someone that she fakes her accent. I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I have been a believer. Up until recently, I always thought that MTG was just like sincere. She was genuine. Genuinely crazy, but genuine nonetheless. And nowadays, I don't know. I don't know if it's that she has like ambitious for higher office, and that's the reason why she's moving the way she is. But I don't think her accent is fake. I think she's just like that. I think she's like that. She is that kind of person. Interesting. She seems way more scared of the right than the left, or is it just me? Yeah, I mean, there's a reason for it, right? I think when push comes to shove, we all know that there's one side that is responsible for the overwhelming majority of political violence, and it's not the woke, non-binary, septum-piercing having they Dems, okay? It's the base. It's the right-wing base. That is where a lot of this violence comes from.
Unfortunately, it has all come down to the Epstein files. And that
This woman is still a Nazi. Don't let her departure from Trump fool any of you. I'm not being fooled at all. I'm just trying to make an honest assessment.
is shocking. And, you know, I stand with these women. I stand with victims. I stand with children who are in terrible situations, and I stand with survivors of trafficking and those that are trapped in sex trafficking. And I will not apologize for that. I believe the country deserves transparency in these files, and I don't believe that rich, powerful people should be protected if they have done anything wrong. And so I'm standing with the women, and I will continue to do my small part to get the files released.
You said on X yesterday, quote, "It's astonishing really how hard he's fighting to stop the Epstein files from coming out, and that it really makes you wonder what is in those files." Are you suggesting there's something in the Epstein files that President Trump does not want Americans to see?
Well, I think that's the part that has so many people confused, is that the women themselves that I have talked to have over and over again said that Donald Trump did nothing wrong. Quite a few of them even told me they voted for him. And those are the women I would like to see in the Oval Office with support. I would like to see all of the women there with support. I have no idea what's in the files. I can't even guess, but that is the questions everyone is asking, is why fight this so hard?
Well, before this blow-up, you sort of alluded to this just now. You said you were confident the president wouldn't be implicated. Are you still confident of that?
I'm listening to the women. Those are the ones that are saying that he did nothing wrong. Virginia Giuffre even said under oath that Donald Trump did nothing wrong, and she wrote it in her book. So I'm continuing to listening to the women, and I think their voices should be the loudest.
The president said the reason that you have been critical of him is not necessarily Epstein, but because he pushed you not to run for the Senate or for governor in Georgia.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is just the biggest grifter ever, right? Lemo, she was a grifter. I think she's a grifter in the way that she's operating right now. Like, she is, Marjorie Taylor Greene is an insane person, okay? And insane people are sincere. I think we need to use the words correctly here. We need to use the terminology correctly here. I am of the mindset that Marjorie Taylor Greene is more an insane person than she is like grifting. I don't know if this is a moment of a crisis of conscience in a weird, twisted way where she like actually does believe the QAnon stuff and then goes, "Oh my God, this is the real QAnon situation that I knew was real," you know, and therefore I have to speak out against it, or because she wanted to run for Senate, as AOC said, and then found herself being sidelined by the administration and wanted to like pivot. You know what I mean?
Here's some tea for you. MTG, people are like, "Oh my God, she's saying all of these things. Like, what's gotten into her lately? Oh, like she's bucking against Trump. She's bucking against the administration." Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to run for Senate in Georgia. She wanted to run for Senate earlier this year in the state of Georgia. She wanted to be the Republican nominee for Senate. So she was gearing up for that statewide race, and Trump told her no. Trump said no. And the White House and Trump land shut down Marjorie Taylor Greene's personal ambitions to run for Senate. And she has been on a revenge tour ever since.
Does she have the backing to become the new face of MAGA after? No. I think this is a political move for a presidential run. She's doing a trial balloon. If this plays well, she becomes the face of the anti-Trump right and steps into the role. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a less controllable entity than Donald Trump. Marjorie Taylor Greene is unironically just as crazy as Trump, if not crazier than Donald Trump. The establishment don't want someone like that. The establishment don't want someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene. They want JD Vance. Or, I mean, there's different forces within. There's different forces at play. You have the tech bro, Silicon Valley freaks. They want JD Vance. The establishment Republicans wanted Ron DeSantis. Only the base wanted Trump. Do I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is capable of capturing the attention of the MAGA base in the way that Donald Trump was able to? No. I think there is a reason why I keep repeating this over and over again. The only man in the right. So how the f are you saying she's sincere? No, I'm saying throughout her career, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene has been so insane that she is genuine in her insanity. A grifter is like Tucker Carlson, okay? Tucker Carlson has firm commitments and real beliefs, but Tucker Carlson also will change Tucker Carlson is very good at tailoring his propaganda to a direction that he doesn't even personally believe. Like Tucker Carlson is not a person who actually cares about the working class. But because in 2016 he saw how popular Bernie was, he very quickly changed his commentary to make it seem like he was a populist, okay? To make it seem like Trump was a populist, to make it seem like he was truly invested in the problems of the working class. That's grifting. If you have no real ambitions of helping the working class, but you claim that you want to help the working class in your commentary, that's grifting. Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't talk about Jewish space lasers because she thought she made a calculation that like anti-Semitism would play well to her base, even if she doesn't actually believe it. She does believe it. She's insane. Does that make sense? That's the difference between someone who is grifting and what grifting means versus someone who is sincerely a crazy person, right? That's the difference. Whereas now Marjorie Taylor Greene is moving in a very different way. So I'm trying to make sense of it. I'm trying to figure out if she is actually grifting or if this is yet another moment of sincerity, but like she accidentally arrived at the correct position on some of this stuff. Now, that doesn't really mean much because ultimately the rest of her worldview is still horrifying, right? Is dog shit. I think the grift was the over-the-top behavior. Certain things made her popular and she played into them really hard. Crazy people have ambitions too. True. My theory is that someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert, who are new blood in politics, are sincerely invested in unveiling the truth, whereas elected officials who have familiar connection to politics, lineage of established politicians, not going to want to fuck with their bag and go along to get along, not stand for anything insane, but actually wants to drain the swamp. No. Marjorie Taylor Greene dance in the sunlight tweet from 2024. For my Republican colleagues in the House and Senate, if you're going to release ethics reports and rip apart our own that Trump is appointed, then put it all out there for the American people to say yes. All the ethics reports and claims, including the one I filed, all your sexual harassment and assault claims. Yeah. I can't tell. I'm not making sense of shit. We live in a bizarre world. Trump blew Clinton. I'm not predicting shit about anything. I don't think Trump blew actually give a job to. Come on, Hasan. We both know if Trump endorsed MTG for Senate, she'd be fighting just as hard not to release the Epstein file. She's a grifter. I think that's true. I think you're right. I think you are right, chatter. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is moving away from sincerely delusional to calculated grifter era. That's my assessment. That's how I feel about this. Is there some truth to her resentment here? Surely, right? Especially if you are to assume that she was a real QAnon supporter, right? And wasn't doing it cynically. Like there is a level of genuine resentment, I think, that exists, which makes it easier for her to do this pivot. Charlie Kirk was a grifter. Okay. Charlie Kirk was a grifter. Charlie Kirk talked about Epstein. And then as soon as Donald Trump gave him the boss call, he stopped talking about Epstein. That's grifting. Because if you were to probably ask him in private, I'm sure he cared about the Epstein stuff, right? But he wasn't going to the bag. He wasn't going to go against Donald Trump. That's grifting. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, sincerely believes some of the anti-Semitic conspiracies, and that's probably playing a role in her genuine beliefs about Israel, rather than just like tackling, rather than just like identifying a point of weakness, a void in the media landscape that she wants to fill by being the anti-Israel candidate. I don't think it's that calculated. I think for Tucker Carlson, it's that calculated, but I think for Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's not that calculated. I think she genuinely is like, yeah, Jews are up to some, and Israel is a part of that, and I'm gonna address it. So that's what it feels like. This is not to give her any credit, but I do think Marjorie Taylor Greene's whole arc is genuine in the sense that it's what would probably happen if you took any insane Facebook commenter and made them actually experience legislatively dealing with the Republican Party for a couple years. You think Marjorie Taylor Greene saw the writing on the wall with Israel? No, I think that plays a role in it. That plays a role in it. I think if Donald Trump was pro Marjorie Taylor Greene and was like, oh yeah, you should run for Senate. I'll help you get a Senate seat. Then she probably wouldn't be as aggressive on the Israel stuff. She definitely would be defending Trump with the Epstein stuff, for example. But the fact that she's not doing that right now is partially because she is a QAnon wine mom, and that guides her. That's like her primary directive. That's what a lot of her worldview is built on top of. But the other reason why she's doing it is because I think she also identifies that this is a point of weakness where she can make a name for herself.
And when did he do that?
Well, that is absolutely not true. Actually, I never had a conversation at all with the president about running for Senate or running for Georgia. And those were decisions I came to on my own, that I don't want to have anything to do with the Senate. I think the past 2 months of the government shutdown should have shown America exactly why I would never want to be there. I think it's a very broken institution that serves the uniparty and doesn't serve the American people and how they vote. And I decided that I didn't want to run for governor this cycle either. I very much want to do the job that I'm in. Everyone else says I'm running for something, but all I want to do is serve Georgia's 14th district, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity.
So he said it pretty explicitly. Are you saying he's lying, or did he at least get that message to somebody on your political team instead?
I'm not sure. But I don't. That is untrue what he said. I don't know if he's being fed wrong information. I honestly have no idea in that area, but it is absolutely factually not true. Nor have I called him, and White House logs would prove that. His own cell phone records would prove it. I have not been calling the president, but I did post messages that I had sent to him, and that was to protect, get involved. This is important. The American people want the Epstein files released. And, I've stood with the president. I have disagreed with him at times, Dana, and I'm allowed to do that. I think that's the most important thing we can do as Americans. And I'm urging my party. I've been putting massive pressure on my party and our speaker to pass the agenda that the American people vote for. That's the agenda that I fought for. Those are the campaign promises I made. And I can disagree with the president at times, particularly this past Monday on the Marines' 250th anniversary, when he honored the new Syrian president, who is an al-Qaeda terrorist and was wanted by our government for years with a $10 million bounty up until March of this year. I
had to change the lighting up a little bit because it's not. I think it's a lot better now. It was too yellow in the room. Trump's turn against MTG only bodes well for her future prospects. No, I don't think so. And the reason why I don't think it bodes well for her future prospects is because MTG, one, I don't think Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't think she speaks to the same frequency that Trump is able to tap into. Okay. That's number one. Like, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not going to be able to hold the base together. You need to be a lot more charismatic. You need to be a better storyteller. You need to be like Trump. Trump has been able to present himself as more moderate than we give him credit for here on the broadcast, because like we know exactly what he's trying to do. But for the average American, in both the elections that Donald Trump won, he was able to tap into I'm a different type of Republican successfully, right? The only time he lost was when, he was the incumbent and people knew exactly what type of Republican he actually was, right? It was in the heels of COVID, all this stuff. And what I mean by that is, with respect to Israel, for example, Trump always took this like weird middle of the road statement. He kept saying he was a peace president. That is, and liberals often don't understand this, but like that is a moderate presentation, positioning himself against Republicans as well, like Republicans that he identifies as bad Republicans, like ones that always want to wage war. Now, it's not real. Obviously, this is a lie, but the positioning is still there, and it's important to acknowledge it. And that positioning is a moderate positioning. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a little too kooky, I think, a little too cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I saw this tweet. It's funny. The artist. It's so crazy. It is one of the craziest things I've ever seen, honestly. I just don't. Is JD Vance this much better than her? He did the spread the Haitians eating cats and dogs. No, I think JD Vance is also a loser in a popular contest. But Hasan, that's not the argument I was making before. You might be right that she can't garner the same support, but the point is, threat, she is trying to. She's making a political move to it. Whether or not she'll succeed is another question, but her ambition. Yeah, no, that is definitely her ambition. Like I was saying, I don't think that the way she's operated so far will be helpful unless in a weird way, she also is tapping into that Trump heterodox method of moderation on certain issues. Because like if her goal is to win over the populist wing of the party that is super pro-Trump, she's going about it the wrong way by attacking Trump. You got to brown nose him, and you got to be in the inner circle. Especially as it stands, I don't think she's powerful enough to be able to thwart or pull away people from Trump's base.
I think that was very hurtful to the great men and women who served over in the Middle East and were sent there, and many of them that were killed and injured and live with PTSD to this day from fighting al-Qaeda. So there's things I disagree with, and I'm allowed to do so.
Well, you mentioned the Syrian leader at the White House. You've also been critical of President Trump over foreign entanglements, H-1B visas. Now he's moving military assets towards Venezuela. I do want to play something that he said this week.
Don't forget, MAGA was my idea. MAGA was nobody else's idea.
It's me. I'm MAGA.
MAGA wants better than anybody else. And MAGA wants to see our country thrive.
Do you agree? Do you think he represents the MAGA movement as he once did?
Well, what the American people voted for with MAGA was to put the American people first and stop sending foreign aid and stop being involved in foreign wars. They very much deserve to be put first. Cost of living is far too high. Health insurance is completely out of control. And those are two issues I've been very vocal on for months and months now, long before Republicans were shocked when those big losses came on this past Tuesday's election. So I think that the American people deserve to be put first. That's what Make America Great Again meant to me. And I think that President Trump can do that if he refocuses his effort. And I think that's what I want to see. I think that's what the country wants to see. Even if he's attacking me, I do want him to be successful for the American people.
So sounds like you're saying that he is not representing the MAGA movement that he started right now.
I can say that promoting H-1B.
I mean, going on CNN and crying like this, but still trying to defend Donald Trump, it's weird. It's a tough sell, I think. On the one hand, she's like on CNN She's on CNN in a way that Republicans won't appreciate because she's like she is attacking Donald Trump, but she's also trying to defend Donald Trump. I don't think you can pull this off. But maybe, I don't know. Americans, I don't know how stupid Americans are at this point. I can't tell. Sometimes Americans can surprise you, you know? At some point, she's going to have to figure out which direction she's leaning in because this tightrope is going to snap. And I think Trump has already decided she's out. If she was drifting to get that direction, doing it in the first year of the presidency is too soon to try that method. They're stupid. She's doing numbers in my family group chat right now. Wait, so your family group chat that have identified certain issues with Trump, like certain promises that Trump has made that is not, wait, first of all, is your family group chat liberal? Roach from Asmongold's room. Is your family liberal or are they MAGA? Are they libtards or are they MAGA? Oh, they're libs. Okay, that does, no. No liberal is going to vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene. Come on. At the end of the day, ask your family, if it was Marjorie Taylor Greene versus AOC, for example, who would they vote for? That's not going to work. That never works. That does not work, especially because of who Marjorie Taylor Greene is. Yes, they will. No, liberals will always vote for a Democrat before they vote for a Republican, a Marjorie Taylor Greene style Republican especially. Remember, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not like Donald Trump. She started off as a congressperson. Okay? She gained prominence as a congressperson. Donald Trump gained prominence as a television personality. So he could present himself as an outsider. She can't in the same way. And Donald Trump was able to present himself as an outsider, and that actually allowed him to win favors with a lot of low propensity voters, win favors with a lot of middle of the road guys, Obama swappers, you know? He presented a different vision for America, all this stuff. MTG doesn't have that background. It's not going to be as easy for her. She is seen as like a regular ass, well, not even a regular ass Republican. Up until this moment, she was seen as an insane Republican, one of the most like diehard MAGA Republicans. You are right, but never underestimate how much they love Never Trumpers. Liz Cheney or every person on a CNN panel. Yeah, if liberals love Never Trumpers that much, Kamala Harris would have actually won. I'm telling you right now. My whole extended family is Obama Trump voters is crazy. Yeah.
He says to replace American jobs, bringing in 600,000 Chinese students to replace American students' opportunities in American colleges and universities. Those are not America First positions.
Subscribe to the Piker Broadcasting Service.
To really travel all over the world doesn't help Americans back at home. I really, and I said this to him, and I will say it out loud. I would love to see Air Force One be parked and stay home, and there be nothing but a constant focus in the White House on a domestic agenda that helps the American people once and for all.
Congresswoman, you posted on X that President Trump is, with his comments, fueling a, quote, hotbed of threats against you. Obviously, any threats to your safety are completely unacceptable. But we have seen these kinds of attacks or criticism from the president at other people. It's not new. And with respect, I haven't heard you speak out about it until it was directed at you.
Dana, I think that's fair criticism. And I would like to say humbly, I'm sorry for taking part in the toxic politics. It's very bad for our country. And it's been something I've thought.
I'm not even saying damn to Dana. I'm saying damn for her acknowledging it. Of course, Dana's gonna cook MTG. She's a Trump. She's a Trumpy. She's like far right. Not only is she far right, but now she's also anti-Israel, which is another thing that Dana hates. I'm just surprised that she's like, yeah, I take ownership over it. It's really toxicity. It's just weird, man. It's weird to see her try to reposition herself like this. I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't understand like how this will be successful for her.
For taking part in the toxic politics. It's very bad for our country. And it's been something I've thought about a lot, especially since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, is that I'm only responsible for myself.
It's just crazy because she's like, this is a real leopards eating my face moment for her, right? Like everything she's talked about, like political toxicity, political violence, you know, she is the biggest advocate for more political toxicity. She is one of the more polarizing Republicans, and Republicans are already incredibly polarizing. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense for her to just be like, oh, well, you know, I'll take ownership over it. Who amongst us hasn't said Ilhan Omar has done treason for being a mujahideen with a hijabi and Mohammedan? And I've said that she needs to go back to Somalia, but I take ownership over it. Maybe we should not do that. Like, I just don't, like, she is experiencing maybe a fraction of what she's dished out over the years. I just don't think that she's capable of pulling a Tucker here. Finally caught you live. I love your content. Thank you for educating this generation to be smarter. I'm trying, but I'm failing. Let's be real. I'm trying, but I'm failing.
And my own words and actions. And I am committed, and I've been working on this a lot lately, to put down the knives in politics. I really just want to see people be kind to one another, and we need to figure out a new path forward that is focused on the American people, because as Americans, no matter what side of the aisle we're on, we have far more in common than we have differences. Yeah. And we need to be able to respect each other with our disagreements.
So just to put a button on this, you regret the things that you have said and posted in the past, the Facebook post that was taken down of you in 2020 holding a gun alongside the squad, encouraging people to go on the offense against the socialists, liking a tweet of somebody calling for the execution of Nancy Pelosi and former President Obama. Just examples.
Well, Dana, as you know, and many people know, I addressed that back in 2021. And of course, I never want to cause any harm or anything bad for anyone. So that was addressed back then, and I very much stand by my words I said then, and I stand by my words today. I think America needs to come together and end all the toxic, dangerous rhetoric and divide. And I'm leading the way with my own example, and I hope that President Trump can do the same.
Okay.
I don't think she comes across as sincere. That's the other thing. Is she looking at Trump's numbers nosediving and just seeing that she could be an outlet for other Republicans that are disillusioned with Trump? I mean, Trump's numbers are nosediving with independents. They're not nosediving with the MAGA base. They might after this, if she's able to like put a dent in the armor. I read this as nothing but insincere. I can't see this as like sincere at all. She just sounds like she's going through the motions.
So on that, I do want to ask you about something you...
Like, she sounds more sincere when talking about how Israel up for blowing up children. You know what I mean? She sounds even more sincere when she's talking about Jeffrey Epstein, because those are things that she actually does care about, maybe for the wrong reasons, but still care about nonetheless. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, cares about Israel partially because she thinks what Israel's doing is crazy, and partially because she is anti-Semitic. And she cares about Jeffrey Epstein partially because she believes in the QAnon conspiracies, and partially because she, I think, cares about child predation to a certain degree, right? We saw the real anti-pedophilia Republicans when this Epstein stuff first started blowing up. The people calling into, you know, the what's the dude's name? I'm forgetting it now. Jesus Christ. Like the people who were calling Republican TV shows and radio shows, Glenn Beck's show, and being like, what the hell's going on? I don't know what the hell's going on. Why is Trump behaving like this? This has 9 million. This has 1 million views in 9 hours, and people are buying what she's selling. I mean, I disagree with, these are liberals. These are liberals. Wow, she took accountability. That's crazy. That was actually crazy. It doesn't come across as sincere, but it's crazy that she actually is taking accountability. I'm not a Marjorie Taylor Greene fan, but it sounds like typical GOP. See, this is what I mean. Liberals are eating this up, but that doesn't mean anything. Liberals believing Marjorie Taylor Greene is not going to move the needle. If she wants a higher office, she needs the Republicans to come on board. No liberal is voting for Marjorie Taylor Greene as opposed to these are all liberals. These are all liberals who are experiencing someone who has been an incredibly far-right nuisance in American politics, basically engaging in a heel turn. Liberals love someone coming to their side and telling them that they were right, you know, and she's not even fully doing that. But I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people are responding the way that they are. It's the Republicans that we need to figure out.
Just yesterday on X, you questioned who and what country is putting so much pressure on Trump to keep the Epstein files hidden. And you included a picture about donations from pro-Israel lobbying group AIPAC. What are you trying to say there?
Well, I think it's the question that many Americans are asking, especially when we saw information recently come out in these emails that the Oversight Committee that I serve on has released. And we saw Jeffrey Epstein with ties to Ehud Barak. We saw him making business deals with them, also business deals that involved the Israeli government, and seems to have led into their intel agencies. And
Marjorie Taylor Greene perfectly capturing why nobody grifts to the left. I mean, she's not grifting to the left anyway. She's grifting. If she would, she'd be grifting to the liberals, not to the left. Nobody, and I mean nobody, grifts to the left at all. There is no use for it. There's no reason for it. You just don't do it.
I think the right question is to ask is, was Jeffrey Epstein working for Israel? And I'm proud to say I don't take money from AIPAC. I don't take money from any special group of people. I'm just representing my district and the American people.
Yeah, this is also important. Worth noting, Jeremy Bash, former chief of staff of the CIA and the Department of Defense, and ex-husband of CNN host Dana Bash, had dealings with a top Israeli spy who stayed for weeks at a time at Jeffrey Epstein's apartment in New York. They continued to coordinate privately together for years. So that's another thing you have to remember. Like, Dana Bash is not only super pro-Israel, but she is connected to people who are connected to Jeffrey Epstein. So, like, you know, there is that. That's important to remember. So, oh God, American politics is so crazy because, like, everyone is to varying degrees of evil. Okay, everyone's got like some evil in them, whether it be a member of the media, whether it be a politician. Of course, many politicians, but it's just like there's always something out there.
And so that's what I was referring to.
I just want to be clear. Are you saying Israel is pushing the president of the United States to cover up the Epstein files? And what evidence do you have that that is the case?
I simply asked. No, I simply just
admit that you don't want to watch a beautiful woman succeed in politics. Oh no, you clocked me. Are apolitical normies a non-factor in this equation? Any possibility normies influence institutional Republicans to take serious look at MTG as an alternative path for the Republican Party? No. I think the base is so cult-like in their loyalty to Trump. Until that dam breaks, you won't see a lot of movement here.
asked out loud, is there a foreign government? It could be any foreign government, but is a foreign government pushing to keep this covered up? Because people just don't understand the big fight against.
Well, you had AIPAC up there. It was pretty clear which government you were talking about.
That I'm questioning that government in particular and questioning any other foreign government.
Okay, when you're talking about lowering the rhetoric, which is important for everybody to hear from you and all of our elected officials.
The Massey Marjorie Taylor Greene bots have been flooding X for about a week now. Come on, man. Oh, he's on his Democratic Party shit right here. This is like very liberal coded. Oh, it's Russia. Oh, it's bots. Hey guys, the affordability crisis is not that bad, okay? Everyone's lying. Your pockets aren't hurting right now, okay? How dare you? How dare you assume that you're actually having a tough go at it? Come on. We've improved. The price of turkey has gone down by 2 cents. Don't you like marginal and modest and incremental gains? This is hilarious to see in action.
But there is some concern, a lot of concern among Republicans about the rise of anti-Semitic hard-right figures in your movement, especially after Tucker Carlson hosted white nationalist Nick Fuentes on his.
Okay, I don't think MTG. Marjorie Taylor Greene literally hired Milo Yiannopoulos. And I'm pretty sure she still has a direct connection to Milo Yiannopoulos. Okay? You need to understand something like that is also Marjorie Taylor Greene said Jewish space lasers did wildfires. Like, what are we talking about? She is the elected representative version of Nick Fuentes, or at least used to be. What the I mean, look, I'm here for the heel turn. I'm here to watch him fight, okay? Yeah, she spoke at, I think, a Nick Fuentes conference, like an America First conference. So let's see what she says.
I asked, didn't question Fuentes about his vile language or views. You did speak at a conference hosted by Fuentes back in 2022. You were criticized, and you said then that you didn't know about his views. Well, Fuentes talked to Carlson about that in the interview. Listen to what he said.
Well, again, with Marjorie.
Yeah, also, Dana Bash is the last person to complain about Nick Fuentes. I'm sorry, okay? Before people go, two wrongs don't make a right or whatever, she literally has had Randy Fine on her fucking broadcast, okay? It's ridiculous. And also, Dana Bash herself has similar opinions, maybe not as extreme as Randy Fine, but like Dana Bash is also pro-Israel, you know? Israel's doing a genocide. Like, this is a real instance of violence that's currently taking place that she is in support of. This is the dynamic that frustrates me so much, because as someone who finds Nick Fuentes' politics to be repugnant, I also find pro-Israel politics to be equally as repugnant. That's what's so annoying about this shit, where it's like, you can, like, this only reaffirms what people see, the inconsistency that people see in American politics, which is you can be as horrible as you want to every single marginalized identity except for Jewish people. Now, many liberals, I don't think, actually operate like that, but members of the media do operate like that, it seems. Like, that's what I'm seeing from the way that they are tailoring their commentary here. And there are others who have also pointed this out. Nick Fuentes is anti-Semitic, but this level of outreach from Dana Bash is disingenuous. CNN has interviewed Randy Fine multiple times, and they've never held him accountable for any of his vicious Islamophobia. They have no problem when other groups are being targeted. Yeah, this kind of stuff is visible first and foremost to the right-wingers, by the way. They see this shit, and when they see that inconsistency, it causes them to lean further into anti-Semitic conspiracies. You know what I mean? It's such a glaringly obvious double standard that I think even the dumbest guy can recognize it. And then they go, oh, I'm noticing. If Nick Fuentes never said what he has said about Jews, but instead said it about every other minority, as he does, for the record, he does say those things about every minority, right? He would not be in this kind of trouble. It's obvious.
I was a friend of hers, and she spoke at my conference, and then the day after, she pretended like she didn't know me. She pretended like she didn't know me and lied and said I had no idea the conference I was speaking at. She knew exactly what it was.
What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, I defend every single person's free speech rights. I think that's incredibly important. So I don't apologize for that. And I don't believe in canceling people. And I think it's important for people like Tucker Carlson and yourself to interview everyone. I don't believe in trying to cancel someone by refusing to interview them and question them. And I did speak at his conference back in 2022. However, I don't know Nick Fuentes. He's someone I've never exchanged text messages with or phone calls, but I did speak at his conference. That was the first time I had met him that day, and that was it. But I did watch the interview. I watched the full interview with Tucker, and I admire him for interviewing many people as well as exposing a lot of powerful information.
I hear what you're saying.
He does on his show.
I hear what you're saying about free speech. I mean, count me as guilty as a proponent of free speech. There's free speech, and then there is hate speech. And this is a man invited on a really prominent conservative show who said, even during that interview, he had a problem with, quote, organized Jewry, and he wasn't challenged on it. In the past, he had...
Yeah, once again, why free speech and there's hate speech. Okay. CNN host attacked Tucker Carlson for hosting the Fuentes. Fair enough, but they've hosted Randy Fine multiple times, who has been openly as violent and as racist as Fuentes. But because Fine called for violence against Palestinians, CNN sees that as just standard political discourse. And Randy Fine hasn't just called for violence against Palestinians. He's also called for violence against Muslim congresspersons like Ilhan Omar, for example, and Muslims in the United States of America. Randy Fine is more overtly Islamophobic than even Nick Fuentes is overtly anti-Semitic, because like there is still a degree of stigma, institutional stigma specifically, around anti-Semitism. So Nick Fuentes has to like dial it back, and it still comes out, right, at times, but no such institutional stigma exists for Islamophobia. So Randy Fine gets to say whatever the he wants about Muslims. And the thing is, this is a reality that Nick Fuentes himself is aware of, and he will use to his advantage. Here it is. Look.
Even those people that are criticizing Israel. Because to say it's about Zionism or about a genocide is really just not even...
Are you okay with anti-Semitism but not Islamophobia? Have you ever... Can you point to a single moment where I've said I'm okay with anti-Semitism? Can you actually point to a single instance where I've ever actually allowed anti-Semitism to manifest in this community? I fight against anti-Semitism every single day. Every single day. My bad, King. I was curious. Okay. What's frustrating about this process, like what's frustrating about this dynamic, is that it also feeds into anti-Semitism. That's it.
The whole picture here. So Dasha Nekrasova got fired by Hollywood for hosting an anti-Semitic person that says Jews run Hollywood. Insane. But we all know this is how it goes. We all know this is the way it works.
What do you think about Mohammed El-Kurd tweet about Jewish supremacy? Israel is a Jewish supremacist nation. Zionism is a Jewish supremacist politics. It's a Jewish supremacist ideology. It's fascist. It is true. I don't even know what Mohammed El-Kurd said, but everybody gets so in their feelings about this. But there is a degree. It's interesting because Zionism is billed to the in-group as a Jewish supremacist ideology, except at the same time, it does have a higher degree of priority for whiteness as well, which is part of the reason why you have like 1 million Russians who aren't ethnically or religiously Jewish that have Israeli citizenship, for example. So like it's first and foremost a settler colonial project, right? It's not even like it's more complicated than black and white, if that makes sense.
And you have to consider the following. When Trump got elected, there was this feeling that cancel culture was over, right? Am I wrong in saying this? A year ago, I think you could even say it was the consensus that comedy had been legalized and cancel culture is over, and a spirit of liberalization, and by that I mean openness, had come to America. That we'd emerged on the other side of the woke, cancel culture, political correctness, the peak of that, which might have been reached, let's say, arguably in 2022 or 2023. And this had a lot to do with Elon acquiring Twitter and other things. But what we have seen ever since then is that was really just half the story. Cancel culture did not end. It ended about certain topics. You have license to be cruel to brown people. Am I wrong? That's what that meant. When people said cancel culture was over, it meant that you can say offensive things about black people.
Once I gotta consult my Discord full of stalkers. Famously, Charlie XCX friend said he's getting play on CNN now. I mean, yeah, the president was just asked about him. What is this? We need to have an honest conversation about Jewish supremacy, and I don't mean this in a weird Islamist way either. Jewish supremacy is rooted in the belief that anti-Semitism is a unique form of evil that is more morally urgent than other kinds of racism. I'll write something about it in the next week or so. Yeah, I mean, I know where Mohammed El-Kurd is coming from. First and foremost, his family's home was literally stolen in Israel. Like, very publicly. Very publicly. Like, remember the guy, Jacob? Who was like, oh, if I don't steal it, somebody else will. You don't understand. Like, remember that settler in the West Bank? That was Muhammad. That was Muhammad's family's home. in Sheikh Jarrah. Okay, that is the El Kurd family home. The backyard video, that's his sister's house. Yaqub from Brooklyn or Long Island. So just remember that. Wait, no, wait, what? Yeah, no, that's Mohammed's home. If anyone has the clip, I'll pull it up. But that could be said about other marginalized groups and forms of oppression too. It's called Oppression Olympics. A lot of people engage in it. No, we're not talking about Oppression Olympics. We're talking about institutional stigma. Okay? There is only, right now as it stands, amongst the Republicans who have run on a campaign of it's no holds barred. You can be mean and ruthless to every marginalized group. Except for one group. Like they are the ones who are operating on this wavelength. All bigotry is repugnant, morally abhorrent, and unacceptable. But some bigotries are permissible by the institutions. As a matter of fact, a lot of bigotry is cast aside as marginal or inconsequential or not that important, as opposed to one type of bigotry that still has some kind of institutional stigma associated with it, where you'll get dropped from your agency or whatever, right? Like Amy Schumer can say whatever the he wants about Palestinians, Muslims in general, and of course, like Melissa Barrera can't even criticize Israel without getting fired. Like Melissa Barrera didn't even do anything that was anti-Semitic, right?
Again, about brown people, about Muslims. And our Republican Party and our Republican government and the conservative movement was willing to look the other way. They said, now we're willing to tolerate cruelty and abuse and stereotypes and jokes and offensive things and maybe, a degree of identity politics from white people and against non-whites, the third world, Muslims, barbarians, even about women. J.D. Vance said that it's liberal cat ladies. It's white liberal cat ladies that he hates the most. They're the biggest problem. So they tolerated all this.
It's so funny because, like, this is the purest expression of Republican politics, reactionary politics. He's a Nazi, right? And Nazi fascism or white Christian nationalism, which is like what his version of it is, in the United States of America, is the purest expression, the purest distillation of Republican politics. It's the core, which is why it's so alluring for many. And that is the reason why it's so terrifying for a lot of people in the Republican Party, because they don't want to go to that degree. They don't want to go there. They don't want to take it there. And not because they're fearful that, like, the Republican Party is going to do the Holocaust to Electric Boogaloo or something. They don't want to go there because they don't give a shit about Jews either. Let's be real. Like the Republicans in power don't give a shit about Jews either. Okay. But this actually threatens America's continued allegiance with Israel. It creates too much discontent. And because it's the purest form of reactionary politics, it presents a real threat for institutional power. Because if you were to have someone who actually is genuinely anti-Israel and genuinely anti-Semitic, then all of a sudden, if they were able to win office, then they could change the trajectory of American foreign policy, at least in the way that Americans, in the way that the State Department deals with Israel, in the way that State Department has a seemingly never-ending loyalty to Israel. That's the reason why Republicans are afraid.
Offensive stuff against every other group. But what was happening all the time is that, of course,
who was the Nazi that got punched? Was that Fuentes? No, that was Richard Spencer.
Is that you could never criticize the Jews in Israel. So the left can hate on white people, the right can hate on non-white people, but nobody is allowed to say anything about Jews. Nobody is allowed to say anything about Israel. And isn't that up? I don't care if you're from the right or left, or you're white or black. We can all agree that that is basically the arrangement. The left hates whites, and the right is very offensive towards non-whites. That's fair to say. I say on the show, I know black people are offended by that, I'm sure. And black people on the left say very offensive things about whites. And we're fighting each other. The right is fighting the left is fighting the right. The whites are asserting identity politics against the non-whites. The non-whites are asserting their grievance politics against the whites. And you know who sits outside all of it? It's this other group. And they will lean in on either side. Stephen Miller, will lean in and attack white hippie boomers that suck and Hispanics. And you'll have Jews on the left that'll attack, white people, and Jews on the right will attack black people. But the one group that is totally outside criticism, the one group that is totally outside accountability is Jews. If you talk about the way they're organized, the way they behave, you get fired. You lose your job. And by the way, this is what Ye was talking about a few years ago.
I think it's so insane that his analysis is look, listen to his words, right? When he says criticism, oh, he dropped the hard R. I didn't hear that. I was in the room, but I didn't even notice that he did that. But when he guys, shut up. I'm doing political commentary over a prominent neo-Nazi that the mother president of the United States is addressing. Okay. Yes, he said the N-word. We have shown videos of Lee Atwater also saying the N-word. This is the state of affairs in America. Okay. Become a adult right now. Wake up. Lock in. This is where we're at in our politics. If you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. You can imagine an alternative vision. Go watch flop tubers if you want to pay attention to nonsensical bullshit. Unfortunately, this is where we're at. Okay? He is a Nazi. Okay? You left the video playing itself. That's not that you maybe woke of the day, but I don't think it's okay to leave this playing without you being in the room to address it. If his words are playing on screen and don't push back, some idiots are going to get duped. I am in the room. I'm literally right there. I'm in the corner of the room getting putting coffee in the coffee machine. Okay? Listen, one of the things pay close attention to his words. One of the things that he's doing here, aside from saying the literal N-word, is that he is trying to make it seem like his racism is actually simple criticism and accountability. It's bullshit, okay? Where he turns around and makes it seem as though, oh, well, conservative Jews hate black people and liberal Jews hate white people. Everyone gets to hate on everybody except for Jewish people, right? He masquerades or tries to make it seem like pure unfiltered racism and bigotry is actually not an idiotic form of hatred, but instead reasonable criticism, right? It's ridiculous. Hasanabi's not saying it's based in true. He clearly doesn't agree with him. Obviously, I don't. People are just 2 to 3 years ago, you try to not give this attention, and now his name and actions are being brought up directly to the president. What a timeline. I know. And you have to understand something, okay? None of this is acceptable. In polite society, none of this should be acceptable. I'm in favor of no bigotry, not all bigotry. If Nick Fuentes is in favor of all bigotry, I'm on the exact opposite of that, where I'm saying none of it is acceptable. But the very fact that the media does have a carve out almost that they cynically weaponize too, because it's not just the media getting mad about anti-Semitism. It's also oftentimes the media getting mad at things that aren't even anti-Semitic that they present as anti-Semitism. And the only takeaway for the average American from that conversation is, okay, what the is this what we have to worry about all the goddamn time? Like nonstop? Especially considering that at least currently, this might change, and it wasn't the same throughout history, but at least currently, there is no systematic discrimination against Jews in the same way that there is for black people, for example, or brown people, right? There is discrimination against Jews. Jews are a marginalized population, at least historically, right? And people still do hate crimes against Jewish people, but there is no systemic discrimination against Jews in contemporary American society in the way that it used to exist. Like Jews not being able to go to college, for example, or Jews not being able to Jews being systematically discriminated against. That used to exist in this country. In modern society, it does not. And in the absence of that, there is still a tremendous amount of coverage, hyper focusing on both real anti-Semitic incidents and even things that are not anti-Semitic being presented as anti-Semitism. And that makes most people who aren't Jewish, who have never been around Jewish people, look at the situation and go, why the f do we we care about this? What the hell is going on? And that's exactly how people like Nick Fuentes can present themselves as truth tellers, as people who have identified this inconsistency and are unafraid to say it. If you want to understand how this person has been able to rise to such a degree of prominence, it's primarily because of Israel, and more consequentially, it is the way that our organs of the media, the way that they have covered this issue, the way that they have actually defended Israel or contextualized Israel's violence or attacked Israel's critics. David Frum compared you and Zoran to Nick. They're downplaying this Nazi. Exactly. Who is the National Democrat who will speak as honestly and courageously about Mamdani and Piker as Ted Cruz has spoken about Carlson and Fuentes? The disease is worse than the GOP side, but the immune system is weaker on the Democratic side. This is ridiculous. Like, this is incredibly sinister. David Frum is a pro-Israel stooge, right? He writes for The Atlantic, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. He literally is an Israeli concentration camp guard, or was an Israeli concentration camp guard. There are still a lot of people who don't understand. I mean, he's a war criminal himself. David Frum is, right? One of the prominent champions of the Iraq War, right? The point is, you're stating anti-Semitism used to have a space and no longer does, while racism did and does, but is systemic. I don't disagree, but you're articulating it in a way that is poor. What? I would argue you're making the argument for the right now. I'm making the argument for the right. Yeah. To give specific examples of what you're saying, Jews used to be excluded from bar associations, used to be excluded from country clubs, used to be excluded from working at companies and unions and et cetera, et cetera. They are not any longer. Right? I think it's crazy that you could easily clip Fuentes here, and it seems like a sentiment most of us agree with. He literally says the end of woke just means a green light for cruelty to brown people. Out of context, it's just him saying this is a good thing. It sounds like him calling out a real societal ill. Exactly. That's the problem. Okay? That is precisely the problem. And people like this, people like David Frum, people who are conservative, but on the liberal side, or, you know, go back and forth, centrist, conservative, liberal, Zionists, unironically lean into this. I have a policy of being honest, first and foremost. And this is a dishonest comparison, okay? This is a dishonest comparison. You are trying to compare me to a Holocaust denier. You are trying to compare me to a person that believes that the what did he say? The organized Jewry is fundamentally playing a fundamental role in, like, undermining Western civilizational supremacy. These are not things that I believe. These are things that I actually oppose and talk about quite openly. These are politics that I find despicable. As a matter of fact, part of the reason why I also despise Israel and Zionism is because it is also another version of fascism. Nick Fuentes' politics, but with different victims, okay? But the more you do stuff like this, the more David Frums of the world do stuff like this, the more people look at this and go, okay, I know this guy Hasan. Maybe I don't like him that much, but I've literally seen him yell at Nazis for years and years. And you guys are calling him anti-Semitic too. Who is not anti-Semitic then? Only people who are pro-Israel? What the fuck is that? Watching this vid is acceptable. Seems like we're backdooring his views here. Let Trump platform him. Doesn't mean we have to. Shut up. All right, new hater unlocked. Guy who refuses to recognize how devastating American politics is becoming, that thinks I'm the one who's actually sheepdogging people in the direction of anti-Semitic fascism because I'm analyzing why Nick Fuentes is gaining more prominence by talking about broader systematic and cultural forces at play that have arrived Americans at this position where they're so open-minded to this kind of commentary. Guys, I saw a tweet the other day that I think is really good, and it reminded me of, in this moment, I'm reminded of this tweet that I saw, right? There was someone complaining about, like, one battle after another, and they were complaining that, like, they saw it in the movie theaters and people were laughing at the wrong things and clapping at the wrong things, right? And someone, quote, retweeted that and said, now that woke is coming back, and I'm very excited for it, we have to cut some parts of woke 1 out from the equation, so woke 2 is a little bit cleaner. And this kind of, like, your content consumption is activism version. Your content consumption is actually a true form of activism type of woke needs to go away. You're platforming. I will refuse to understand the nuance of what you're doing here and just get angry at you. needs to go away. We can't do that in woke 2, okay? That was one of the more annoying parts of woke 1. Something that I push back a lot. We got to stop that. Platforming as a criticism has always been so pointless. No, it's not necessarily pointless. If there is a no-name, nonsensical neo-Nazi and plucking them from irrelevance is platforming them. But if that neo-Nazi has already dined with the goddamn president and is now being quoted in mainstream news every single day and is causing a genuine fissure in the Republican Party, then it's no longer platforming. You're just a moron if you think that that is platforming. You cannot platform someone who already has a massive platform. Okay? You can't do that. There is no such thing as platforming when someone is on Tucker Carlson, when someone is getting called out by name in the Heritage Foundation and clearly causing a fissure within the Republican Party. If you think that that's platforming, you're an idiot. Okay? Shut up. Anyway, yeah. Woke 2 making a big comeback means we're going to have to start cutting these parts of woke 1 off like dead limbs if we want to survive. Watching movies is the right/wrong way. Activism is not a style of criticism anybody's interested in hearing about in 2015. Yes, we can't do that. Even if it's criticism that's valid, we can't do that. Sometimes it feels like the left would rather dig in their heads into the least confrontational and comfy communities just to circle jerk about theory and daydream about some supposed future revolution instead of acting in the reality that we live in where fascism is winning. Exactly. I've never done that, and I never will do that. If you want that, you got to go somewhere else. Okay? If you want that, you got to go somewhere else. You got to organize in the world that we live in, not the world that you imagine we're inside of. Hot fix for woke 1.9.6.3. Consumption of content is no longer activism. Criticize people for watching content no longer provides woke points. Yes. But yeah, I like this one. I'm going to retweet David from. Anyway, let's finish this thing. Hold on.
That suck and Hispanics. And you'll have Jews on the left that'll attack, white people, and Jews on the right will attack black people. But the one group that is totally outside.
Guys, you need to stop with this. At least pause the video next time, please. Stop. Also gone and woke 2. Too emotional. You want me to baby you, okay? You're being annoying. And I know the more I talk about it, the more you're going to make this your primary reason for why you are mad. It's okay. It's going to be all right. I promise you. Stop. Some of you want me to change your diapers.
The one group that is totally outside accountability is Jews. If you talk about the way they're organized, the way they behave, you get fired. You lose your job. And by the way, this is what Ye was talking about a few years ago. He was talking about it this year. He said, if I make a song about killing black people, it goes triple platinum. If I make a song about being a gangbanger and killing black people, other black people, and abortion and violence, then I'm a triple platinum recording artist. I'm honored at the Grammys. I'm honored at the White House. I'm honored by Rolling Stone magazine and the New York Times. If I make a song called...
Like, this is, again, another incredibly idiotic argument. A rapper talking about his own personal experiences growing up, which might include violence, is entirely different than someone highlighting Adolf Hitler, okay? A ruthless Nazi mass murderer. These are all a sequence of false equivalencies that unironically work with the dumbest people in society. It's the same reason why people can always get away with, you can make fun of white people, but if I say something about black people, all of a sudden it's a big problem. Yeah, it is. Because white people, especially in the United States of America or in the Western world, have never been systematically discriminated against on the virtue of their whiteness. They have been discriminated against and ruthlessly brutalized on the virtues of class. As a class issue, yes, this is true. And it's so annoying that every time you try to answer the reverse racism shit, people just want no context, no nuance, just black and white answers. And if you are incapable of nuanced thinking, then yes, this works so well for you. You go reverse racism. Yeah, you're right. Why is it that? Why is it acceptable? Okay, why is it acceptable? I think I want this absurd comparison. It makes me feel better. Okay? Every single thing that he's dropping in here is actually super old school Republican politics, which is why I always say Nick Fuentes' politics is the purest distillation of reactionary politics. What he's saying here, maybe not about the anti-Semitism, but what he's saying here is what you heard from Bill O'Reilly, what you heard from Glenn Beck, what you heard from Rush Limbaugh over and over and over again. The notion that, I say one thing about how violent and angry these blacks are and everybody gets up in a tiffy, but you can say whatever you want about white people in America and no one gets mad. This double standard is ridiculous. It's like, that's not a real double standard. That's not a real double standard because there has been no active, systematic form of oppression against white people, both at any point in American history, on the basis of whiteness. Okay? Nobody was enslaved purely because they were white. That's the reason. This is also the reason why the N-word is not just a mean word that hurts black people's feelings, but it's more so a reflection of white supremacist history, a reminder of white supremacist history, and a consistent demand to restore that racial pecking order, or to remind people that that racial pecking order to some degree still exists. It is a way to dehumanize every single black person across the board. That's the reason. Without chattel slavery, the N-word would not be as consequential. Without colonial extraction and the of Africa, the N-word would not, it would be like cracker, I guess. It's such a strange alternative universe that it's impossible to actually think about that alternative universe. But like, that is the reason why the N-word is as powerful as it is, right? But a lot of white people, I don't think, understand this. They just think, oh, it's just a mean word that black people get offended by. Why are they so offended? What about the people who point out that black people also enslaved other black people? Oh my Lord. To attribute a unique form of violence that is chattel slavery, that even historians acknowledge is separate, that was racialized by design to black people, is one of the most insane statements of all time. Okay? Chattel slavery and the consumption and the beneficiaries of chattel slavery were white people. How many black slavers were in the US? Like 20? No, I don't even think they're talking about black slavers specifically. I think they're talking about like the African tribal leaders that would engage in tribal warfare and then would, in certain instances, sell off the victims of whatever sect that they had dominated to the Westerners that came in. And if you actually look to the history of African development, there were plenty of instances where the Western world straight up did not want Africa to develop and did not want to actually take advantage of any of the other material resources that Africa was very wealthy in. Africa has been a very wealthy continent, very materially rich, very resource-rich continent. And historically, Western colonialists have decided, we don't want any of that shit. We only want people. We only want slaves. If you look to the history of trade in Africa, in many instances, people pushed back against this. And in many instances, they wanted to engage in normal trade, and yet they were stopped. They did not want competition. Western colonists did not want competition with other material resources that were being extracted. They simply wanted human beings to enslave. Transatlantic slave trade was also massive in industrial industry on a scale that slaves were reduced to livestock slavery, and most other cultures still recognized by owned by humans. The reduction of humans to products of labor is and was unique to this process. Exactly. In any case, let's get back to this guy.
He said, if I make a song about killing black people, it goes triple platinum. If I make a song about being a gangbanger and live
that stuff
on my
is stupid.
show on Monday, this coming Monday, and I said, Islam. I said, these Muslims need to go home. They're barbarians. They're third worldists. They like to live in open sewage and bomb crap. You think any conservative would disavow me? Any of them? Any Republican? You think if I was known for saying that, do you think I would have any trouble getting in?
He's talking about Ben Shapiro, by the way. Ben Shapiro has said those things. Palestinian Arabs like to bomb and live in sewage. That was a Ben Shapiro quote.
To CPAC or the New York Young Republican Club Gala or the GOP? Of course not, because Laura Loomer has access to the White House and she says stuff like that. Ben Shapiro has access to Trump and he says stuff like that. Could you imagine? Not to be a boomer here.
This is precisely the contradiction that people like Nick Fuentes will consistently exploit. Okay? It's true. And that is exactly why he has risen to prominence. Because if your entire political machine revolves around dominating marginalized groups, okay, dominating out groups, built around this association with whiteness as the in-group, okay? But then you still hold a special place and special emphasis for one version of bigotry, then of course people like Nick Fuentes will exploit that over and over again. The worst thing that you can do is allow your enemy to have a correct argument, okay? That is the worst possible thing you can do.
Would you imagine if the shoe were on the other foot? It has to be left unsaid. Could I turn around and say Judaism and those Jews and send them back to Israel? Like, it's literally unthinkable to even say the words. But we all know it's tolerated with Muslims. We all know it's tolerated with blacks. We all know it's tolerated with Hispanics, Asians. And yes, for far too long, it was tolerated against whites and Christians. And that's just the part that got left out. But now that we have this culture of liberalization and political correctness is dead and racial humor is back, everybody's engaging in it. But if you say anything about them, it's a big problem. Even if it's, as we talked about with this idea of a global Jewry, oh, now it's anti-Semitic? Now people are going to lose their jobs again? Here's the point. Cancel culture never ended. Cancel culture was always about this, and I think people even underestimated that.
He loves to play victim. I was banned from CPAC, debanked, and banned on social media sites because I spoke the truth about Islam. He will never admit that, though, because he's a pathological liar. I love Laura Loomer responding to drop site news on here. If you had said any of that about Christians, you would not be allowed back into America. No, that's not true. America's a Christian nation first and foremost, okay? It was built by WASPs. It's a WASP nation. You can absolutely get away with saying shit like that about Christians, just like you can absolutely get away with saying shit like that about white people. But that is a cultural resentment that a lot of people like Nick Fuentes also take advantage of, where they're like, why can you say this about white people? And it is my job to explain to people why there is a difference here, okay? There's a difference between like someone saying something mean while they're engaging in analysis versus someone just being like openly racist against marginalized identities. Fuentes takes Trumpism to its natural conclusion. People like Rufo or Walsh have too much to gain personally in terms of career opportunities or money to truly support tearing down the system. They've tied the market capitalism, which gets in the way. From Groyper's POV, there's no fundamental difference between neoliberalism or neoconservatism. This is not true for the post-COVID right. They are just going to vote Republican forever and ever. No matter who the nominee is, they would vote for Randy Fine. What? Fuentes might even be more depraved than MAGA, but he's also an intelligent, tactical, sophisticated political actor in a way that his far-right compatriots aren't. It's equal parts refreshing and terrifying to be confronted with a fascist who actually has a brain in his head. I mean, yeah, I think that definitely is a danger. I admit that. That is definitely dangerous. The bar is very, I don't know about refreshing. The words that person is using is ridiculous, but he at least can carry himself like a person who has read a book. Okay? And that is an incredibly high bar to, incredibly low bar to clear, but one that he actually does clear for right-wing politics. Okay? I don't think refreshing is the appropriate word. I don't agree with that. Convert him to our side? There is no conversion for a person like Nick Fuentes. What are you guys talking about? What do I always say? You can actually change regular people's minds, people who have been duped by the likes of Nick Fuentes, but you can't change Nick Fuentes' mind when his entire goal is to do the conversion himself. You can talk to your friends. You can talk to people that you meet in the real world who might actually have these kinds of morally repugnant attitudes. You can talk to them. You can gently move them to your side, but you can't actually convert people who have a financial interest in presenting themselves a certain way. Okay? At that point, doesn't even matter if it's a sincerely held belief or if it's something that they're doing because they realize that they get more recognition that way. They get more prominence that way. Right? The reason why we talked about this is because Dana Fash and CNN in general has had Randy Fine over and over again without ever calling into question some of the horrifying things that he has said. But let's be real, it's because he said that about appropriate groups. He said that about groups that nobody gives a shit about, nobody cares to defend. This inconsistency, especially on the right, will always be weaponized. Especially on the right will always be abused because right-wing politics can never be about improving the material conditions of the working class. It is inherently reactionary. It's opposed to that. And therefore, they play in the waters of culture war narratives. And therefore, they talk quite a bit about petty grievances of the in-group, petty grievances of white people, perceived victimhood of white men. And a big part of that allegiance is around, especially for young men in particular, is around being able to just be as ruthless and as bigoted as you want to be, right? You're a if you can't say slurs like, oh my God, you can't say the R word. What a right? Oh, I voted for Donald Trump because I can say the R word again, right? There are people who have done that. So if that's the core of your politics, then of course Nick Fuentes is going to be the purest distillation of that, paired up with dramatic attitude shifts against Israel, swinging from either not really knowing what Israel is or just being unconditionally pro-Israel to, oh my God, Israel is the cancerous entity in the region that is so destructive to all of its neighbors, and that you should be able to call it out without it getting any significant pushback, and yet people keep constantly yelling at you and saying you're anti-Semitic, and you arrive at this media demon reaching a level of prominence. And he can very easily navigate this. Discourse by, one, exposing the contradictions by saying, oh, you get mad at me for saying this about Jews, but everybody is saying whatever kind of heinous shit about black people, about Muslims in general, which he also says, by the way. Like, he is on the exact opposite of this argument that I'm on, right? Like, we are on the exact polar opposites. I think all of that is unacceptable and up. He thinks it's all acceptable and permissible. And if you can't make a distinction between those two things, if you can't decide, which side is right, which side is wrong, and you just go, no, they're both the same, I'm in the center and they're both seemingly the same, then you're basically allowing that kind of politics to be the norm.
With anti-Semite Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, what role do you think Tucker Carlson should play in the Republican Party and the conservative movement going forward?
Well, I found him to be good. I mean, he said good things about me over the years. I think he's good. We've had some good interviews. I did an interview with him. We had 300 million hits. You know that. Look, I can't tell him. Will you let me finish my statement? You're with Bloomberg, right? You are the worst. I don't know why they even have you. We've had some great interviews with Tucker Carlson, but you can't tell him who to interview. I mean, if he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out. Let him, people have to decide. Ultimately, people have to decide. The mayor of New York, I will say, would like to meet with us, and we'll work something out. But he would like to come to Washington and meet, and we'll work something out. We want to see everything work out well for New York.
You yourself, I think.
We're cooked. What are the broader implications of Trump not distancing himself here? I mean, he sees what's happening, I think. It's amazing how totally ignorant Trump is of the open war of the next GOP that's already breaking out all around him, totally uninterested in it, unconcerned about shaping it, because he's completely incapable of thinking beyond his own tenure, lame as duck imaginable. I don't think that's the case here. And GT here says, I don't think that's quite right. Both Trump and Vance have clearly refused to condemn. Well, both Trump and Vance have clearly refused to condemn Tucker and Fuentes. The reasonable inference is they think about the Groypers as a part of the movement, perhaps not to be openly embraced, but certainly not to be disavowed. Yeah, they can't afford to piss them off too much of their calculation. That's exactly the calculation is much more important than the drama at Heritage, but strangely under-discussed. Exactly. He knows that the next generation of Republicans is like that. The next generation of Republicans is like that. And he is worried about offending them. There's another question that he was asked about Nick Fuentes here. Let's see.
I did it with Nick Fuentes at Mar-a-Lago a few years ago. What role should he play in the conservative movement?
Well, I didn't know he was coming, and he was with, as you know, somebody, Kanye. And Kanye asked if he could have dinner, and he brought Nick. I didn't know Nick at the time. And he did. He came, and along with a few other people. He brought a few people with him. Meeting people, talking to people, like for somebody like Tucker, that's what they do. You know, people are controversial. Some are, some aren't. I'm not controversial, so I like it that way. Okay?
I had dinner with Nick Fuentes at Mar-a-Lago a few years ago. What role?
That's crazy. I mean, he's just straight up saying like, nope, this is the new meta.
Denied the Holocaust, called Adolf Hitler effing cool, talked about the fact that he thought Jim Crow was just fine, and on and on. So again, there's free speech, and then there's just hateful language and sentiments.
Well, Dana, again, I told you on this interview.
Why would Trump care about the next generation of Republicans? Because they're working as his staffers. They're a part of the base. They're eligible to vote. They're a wing of the party, and he can't stand to lose any of his loyalists at this point. He can't.
I'm committed to ending the toxic politics. And I think I don't want to have anything to do with it. You should have Nick Fuentes on your show, and you could ask him questions about that. I myself am not anti-Semitic. I have never criticized the Jewish people or said anything about them in particular. I am critical of the government of Israel.
Of their government.
And I can criticize any government I want to in the entire world, as well as our own. And a lot of the times I am criticizing our own government for failing the American people. And I think that needs to be the focus. And that's the most important thing people care about, is being able to afford groceries, housing, health insurance, and having a...
Did they ever see Marjorie Taylor Greene and Nick Fuentes? That Nick Fuentes is Islamophobic as but will literally just... Nick Fuentes is Islamophobic and racist, but he's at least smart enough to be like, oh, really? You think it's unacceptable for me to say something about Jews, but, you know, you have Randy Fine on, and he can say whatever the he wants about Muslims. Why? Marjorie Taylor Greene is not smart enough. That's why Nick Fuentes is more dangerous. Do you understand? Nick Fuentes is smart enough to actually address that, to hit that as a line.
Good quality of life.
Yeah, and I hear you saying you're not anti-Semitic, and you've said it before, and you know, some of the posts that you have put up, which you have apologized for, certainly have tropes in them that have been used historically against Jews. But I do want to end this conversation with a question.
Yeah, I mean, I already covered it. Yes, this is the drop side piece, but like, Nick Fuentes would praise Hitler and is openly anti-Semitic. Says Republicans are hypocrites for tolerating cruelty and abuse towards Muslims, black people, and other minorities while drawing the line at anti-Semitism. He argues his own politics are simply the logical endpoint of that bigotry. It's true. It's literally true. Republicans, I mean, I've been saying that. I've been saying that nonstop. Fascism is the purest distillation of reactionary politics. It is the logical endpoint, the logical conclusion of the Republican Party in this country. And unlike Pat Buchanan, and even Richard Spencer, as a matter of fact, it seems that Nick Fuentes came at the right time, okay? Because he's not the first. Why does the wording sound like he's been watching your streams? I'm certain that he does. I'm sure he does. At the right time, yes. At the right time to seize on, at the right time as in a time where the Republican Party is more open to an actual acknowledgement of fascist politics. Yes. No, that chatter is talking about Nick Fuentes' own analysis of him being the logical endpoint of Republican politics, which is true, and it's an analysis that I've actually engaged with quite a bit. I think the next successful pivot towards full fascism in America is a candidate co-opting the free healthcare, housing, and other socialist principles. Many fascists have done so in the past. Without mass education and organization, the left will lose that fight. Yeah. What? Yeah, but what Nick wants to happen is let's be racist against everyone, even the Jews. Unlike you say let's end bigotry against everyone. The lesson they get from that is not to end racism, but let's normalize it for all under free speech. America first flag. Yeah, I know. That's my point. We are on the diametrical opposite worldviews here, which is why it is unimaginably frustrating to see dumbasses like David Frum running around and just trying to get people to see the dangers of the extreme left as well. And for most liberals, I think when they see that, they go, no, that's not the same. Sloan Rockmuth is a journalist who has decided to obsessively attack a staffer in his 20s because she doesn't like the views of his father. Every time I see a public attack on Buckley, it's a complete lie. And yes, I notice every person with an agenda who unfairly attacks a good guy who does a great job for me. Fuentes called this guy a fat gay race traitor married to, and this is a slur, I think, right? It's a common Indian name, but like I think right, Nazis use it as a slur. And yet he continuously humiliates himself by pandering to the Groypers. Yep.